Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Scuffed Podcast, ran by two goofy teenagers. I'm Etty,
And I am Dean.
and today's episode is going to be about our Humanities class, or as we call it, Humane Letters. We'll be referring to it probably as HL, as we do at Bugatti. So what our Humanities class is essentially is we read and discuss books Socratically. Which, if you don't know what that means essentially you sit in a circle or some configuration and you have to come up with your own questions from the text and answer them. And typically ends up being a philosophy or sometimes political theory. And you get these really interesting ideas because not only are you just discussing text, you are also bringing your own thoughts and beliefs into it. And so you get into these really deep conversations, and also it's a very good, fun class that is revolved around having your arguments and stating your case. Yes, philosophy may seem stupid, but it is interesting, and at the end of the day, humanities and what we do is important just so that you know how to convey your own ideas in HL.
Yeah. I think my favorite part about humanities is it was kind of just the aspect of being able to discuss with your own classmates. I think part of that brings character, and also it somehow just bonds you with your classmates, being able to discuss and being able to have the adult conversation of, hey, let's sit down and here's what do you think about this political philosophy? What do you think about this idea of the government spending money in this area? So it really is a fun time. I guess probably the hardest thing about it for me is just that every day, you do need to show up, you need to read the text, and believe me, these texts can be very long and tedious sometimes to read. Pride and Prejudice. And having to show up every day can definitely be a struggle, and can definitely be very draining in what is a very hard curriculum to begin with. I don't know, what's your favorite and least favorite thing about it?
So, to start off, for more context, HL is a 2-hour-long class, and they're all of high school at Bugatti. You must take it. And you start with American literature, which ranges from reading through the Amendments to the Declaration to classics of American literature such as Huck Finn. Then in 10th grade, you do European literature and so start getting into a little bit of philosophy, but you also take a lot of European history. Then 11th grade, you either love it or you hate it. You do all ancient Greek, which ranges from you start with the Iliad and the Odyssey and then do some tragedies. Then, so your second semester, you do a lot of Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. I think my favorite part about HL is reading a text, especially if it's someone that you disagree with, such as in 10th grade, you read Karl Marx, who is, a very controversial philosopher. I think it's interesting to see those true ideas because when you think about communism, and you can see, think of a lot of positive or negative things, but I think it's really interesting to see the true base of what communism was founded on and how it was really meant to help people. And I think it's really beautiful to actually see these original ideas and where they came from, and you're not seeing these ideas through some filtered lens of media or something. And I think it's also very fun to have a good discussion. I think because sometimes your discussions can be very dry.
So dry.
Especially with some teachers, such as T-Bone, as we'll refer to him. And it's really fun to have a good conversation where everyone knows the text and everyone's engaging. And especially, it's fun to see how there's different camps of different ideas that come from these texts. I think my least favorite thing is some days are just very long because you either don't understand the text or you just don't care for the text. Pride and Prejudice and some others. Or it's something that you don't fully understand, which isn't a bad thing. Sometimes you can gain better understanding from a hard text. I find that a lot. But we read Thucydides, who was a historian who talked and wrote about the Peloponnesian War. I had T-Bone. It was the longest 2 hours of your life, and you were you were watching the clock as seconds went by, and it felt like years. It was so unfathomably boring, and it was hard to discuss history too, because there's not much leeway. You're just reciting events. So I think the hardest part about HL is how dry it can be and just sitting through it. And I think my favorite thing is having a good discussion, and it can be a very fun class if you're truly engaging with the text.
Yeah, I have T-Bone this year, and I think the hardest text to discuss with him. Shoot. There's a lot of options I could choose from. Aquinas wasn't bad. Who's the second philosopher that we read from Aquinas?
We read Dante. Then we also read...
Hobbes, right?
Oh, yeah, Hobbes.
Yeah. Discussing Hobbes was definitely on the tougher side. Don't let that fall. Yeah, and I think with the text that Tien is discussing Thucydides' account of the Peloponnesian War, there really isn't much to discuss about. Unpopular opinion, but I actually really enjoyed discussing the speeches.
Oh.
And
yeah.
Pericles had.
Yes, I remember that. Those are actually pretty fun.
Those were good. And he was just also an incredible person who lived a somewhat sketchy life. But
no, I remember that. Those were interesting because that was the one part of the text that was actually interesting to discuss, because a lot of Thucydides was just reciting events, but those were talking about the plans for the war. And I think that was interesting to talk about, well, how ethical do you find this, or how ethical would these different philosophers that you've read find this? And I think that was really interesting, because there was I remember there was I can't remember who's between, but there were two sides of where the war should, what was the direction of the war.
Athens.
Yep. And they were discussing, I think one was like more genocidal route of, should we just kill everyone? And I can't remember what the other route was, but it was interesting to see. Okay.
Oh yeah. It was like spare. The conflict he's discussing is the Melian. I think I'm like probably the smarter out of the history of the two, so I can explain this. But basically, Sparta's one of Spartan's allies, Melios, or the Melians, got conquered by Athens, and there was a whole debate in Athens of, should we kill the... Oh, no. It was like a whole conflict where the Melios betrayed Athens, and then the Melios got conquered. The rebellion was quenched. So it's just like, so do we kill every single person that lived in the Melios island? Or do we simply just kill those in charge of the rebellion and just enslave the rest of the people? And just like make them live under our constitutions and our laws. And I think that was the one, that was the thing you were referring to.
That was. And I remember, now I'm looking back at it, I guess both routes are pretty vile and vicious, but I guess that's to be expected with ancient history. And I don't remember discussions exactly. I wish I did, because they were good. But I remember you get into those discussions, and it's really seeing how ethical do you find this, and which side, if you had to pick one, would you choose? And I think that was a very hard discussion. I think, if I recall, everyone was like, well, I probably wouldn't try to kill everyone, because not everyone's guilty, but enslaving everyone's pretty bad. But that, 'tis the way with ancient history. But something I wanted to add in talking about our humanities in HL is you see HL very frequently. As nerdy as it may sound, you see it bleeding into a lot of your just discussions with day-to-day life, especially with fellow students. I think it's really interesting, especially if you're discussing someone who you really agree with or really disagree with. We read, I can't remember, more Milton Friedman, who had some very controversial and a lot of takes I disagreed with. He was very much a libertarian. And I think it's very interesting to see everyone was like, well, why would you want to get rid of national parks? They're beautiful and turn into commercial land. And not only that, but you also just get into true philosophical debates and you talk about over lunch. And it's like, I think that's something that's truly part of the Bugatti image, is trying to make the love of learning apparent. And I think that's something that's truly beautiful about what came out of Humanities. Is not only is it just a class, but it bleeds into your actual life and you're discussing these philosophers. And I think that's something that, yes, it may be weird, but it's also been very good. And it's helped me just as a person figure out what is good in life, and also how to actually prove my argument instead of yelling at the person. And I actually get to have an intellectual debate with a lot of people.
Yeah. I think, I guess, just my take on Humanities overall was ninth grade for COVID year for us was so scuffed. Bugatti kind of just had to modify with the changes that were being made at Bugatti. Or not, Bugatti had to make changes that correlated with COVID. And I guess you could say the seminars were pretty scuffed. And I think 10th grade with DK Money, as we'll refer to him, I think we finally started to have it somewhat normal, but it still wasn't the same because COVID was still around. I was quarantined for a month and a half. That's a story for a later episode. And I think junior year, I had probably one of the greatest teachers I've ever had in my entire life. Shoot, now I have to give him an alias, and we don't really have a nickname for him. We'll just call him the Bearded Red Man. And he was genuinely one of the smartest people, and having conversations and discussing like things in his class while he was leading the seminar with pretty smart people was honestly so much fun, and looking forward to that every single day. And I was all right at essay writing. That's another part of Humanities, is writing essays. That's kind of a part of every school. So it really, Bugatti doesn't have that much difference in that you do need to write essays. I think they're a bit more like, I guess, more, what's the word, like debating argument. Like you have to prove an argument through your writing with supports from the text. But I became so good at writing through his guidance. Like, I didn't realize how crap I was at writing until, like, he gave me, like, the first 2 or 3 essays, and it's just like, Dean, this is a piece of shit. And, excuse my French there, but he just taught me so much, and I think that has affected me and will be apparent in the work I do in college and stuff. And now I have T-Bone, and as we've said, he has a very interesting way of leading things.
So, to continue on Dean's little trail there, this was junior year, and that was the first year I had T-Bone, and I don't have him this year, but
you're so damn lucky.
Dean had the red bearded man, and I had him as a sub a couple times. It was funny because I remember every single day in junior year, I would loathe going to HL. It was so boring, and literally there were some classes where you someone would say there may be 10 things said throughout the entire class, and then T-Bone would be like, okay, guys, yeah, that was a good discussion today. No, it was not. I had better discussions in ninth grade. And that's
You know how that's saying something.
That's really, really saying something. And I remember having him, and it was just brilliant to see him work because you could tell he was passionate about it, but he's also he's so well read. And even in the hallways, I'll say things, and because he doesn't teach seniors. So what ended up happening this year is I have a teacher and Dean has T-Bone. The teacher I have this year has a similar teaching style to the red bearded man. That he is a little bit more inexperienced, so I don't think he's as good. But he has a very similar energy of being very engaged. And I think that's the difference that you can see is there are people who have a bad teacher, such as T-Bone, and you'll have these very dry discussions, and you'll hate that text, compared to if you have a good teacher, you'll have these very rich discussions that really affect you personally sometimes, and you really enjoy those texts and really enjoy discussion. So I think that's something that's very interesting to see the contrast. But something that is always funny is I remember at the end of the day, we have a study hall. And this year, I just was curious to get the red bearded man's takes on a certain text we read. And he didn't know everything, but it was funny to see and discuss. I gave him, the points that I learned about the text, and then some more people from my class got engaged. And we were just sitting there during our study hall and just discussing the text that he hadn't read, but we gave him, the points that really supported or, went against our ideas. And it was just, it's something that really bleeds into your life. And I think that's something that's very well done. And again, the funny thing, it's funny that Dean says that about essays. That is a very big part of your grade and your overall understanding of the text is you're given a prompt and you're told to write about it and using the text. And it's funny to see the different prompts because sometimes you can tell, oh man, this is going to be a crappy essay because I have literally no clue what to write about in this prompt. And then sometimes like, oh, this is a home run. I already figured out my 5-page essay. Mm-hmm. And I think that was something that was interesting because ninth grade year, you did a little bit of writing. You wrote like literally a page in middle school.
You wrote 2 pages in ninth grade, and I guess the teacher that we had, we'll call him Father. That's another story for a different day. Mm-hmm. But Father, he practically made you write 2 pages. Sorry, I didn't mean to, I guess, interrupt you. But we could also transition to one of the more famous parts about Bugatti, and I think one of the more enjoyable parts about your day is HL break. HL break, my goodness, that there are so many stories surrounding HL break. I guess I'll just start off and just discuss COVID. So this is very unnatural for Bugatti nowadays, but in ninth grade, when we were all trapped and quarantined and stuck inside, you got 15 to 40-minute HL breaks outside.
Yep.
Good God, those were the days. You were playing spike ball, and you just gotta get so much energy out. Unfortunately, they don't do that since it definitely does burn a lot of time from just learning. But there was so many things. I think, yeah. I remember one day where I think it was almost actually the end of the winter semester. And I remember a kid named Deerdorf. We went outside and it's super chilly where me and Etsy live at. And it is cold, like frost on the ground, and it's like still 11. Like it is chilly, and yet we're all going outside. We're going to have a great time. But it's like a bit icy and on the concrete. and Deerdorf took like the biggest like full-on cartoon like slip on the ice, try and gain your bounce, and just fall so hard. Oh my gosh. Oh, that was. It is kind of mean to laugh about it looking back, but oh my gosh. It was the most comical thing you've ever seen. I think you can also give Etty, you can give some more insight on ninth grade, but just
So I remember. So Dee and I have been in all. I think we've been in our out of the 7 years at Bugatti. We've been together for 5. We weren't together junior year and this year, unfortunately. But
together in classes, not like together
Yeah.
romantic.
Hey. And so Dean, I remember in ninth grade, sometimes you would just look at the like, I remember, because they also have a lot of self-evaluations throughout the year, and they really ask you, okay, look inside and figure out where you can be better as a student. And in ninth grade, it's kind of hard because you really think you're doing well, but in reality, looking back, I remember it's like, oh, wow, did not do well in HL at all. But I remember sometimes you would just talk to the teacher, and he was like, so how do you feel about discussion? I'm like, I don't know. I really don't feel good. And he's like, yeah. I remember Father, he just said, yeah, I mean, there are some days when I really don't expect us to do anything, so I'll just let you guys, mess around outside. You're going to enjoy it more anyways. So, yeah, we'd have literally just, sometimes you'd go out there and he's like, all right, guys, we can only be out here for like 10 minutes today. And, he'd be playing soccer or spike ball or something. It's like, oh, all right, guys, the end of class. Let's head back. And it's just, I remember that's so fun. But I remember, so 10th grade was a bit interesting because we had a brand new teacher, DK Money. And in real, like, he's a really good guy.
He really is.
He's a really genuine, nice guy, but he's a new teacher. So it was always kind of funny because he really wasn't the greatest. By the end of the year, he was pretty good. But we'd always just wait. We'd just sit in our break room. And I remember one of the things that we did is we had a racquetball. I think it was racquetball anyway. And we would stand outside, and we have, so in our campus, we have a breezeway, and it's covered. It has like a little shelter above it, so you could, if it's raining or something, you don't really get that wet.
Yeah, it's a wooden like metal shelter. Yeah.
And what we would do is we'd stand outside, and we'd either jump and see who can touch the, thing first, or we'd try and bounce the ball as hard as we possibly can, and we would see how many times you could get to hit the ceiling. I think our max was only ever like 3. We got kind of close to 4, but I remember it was so hard and so fun. But then the red bearded man walks outside. He's like, what are you guys doing? Are you serious?
Man.
People are in class right now, and you think this is okay? And I remember I can't remember what I said exactly, but I remember me trying to be a little suck up kind of teacher's pet. I was like, well, even though I was participating in the whole thing, I remember I was like, well, it precipitates a lot of noise. And I think I only used the word precipitate because we had learned about precipitant reactions in chemistry or something. I can't remember what they were called exactly, but I was like, well, it precipitates a lot of noise, and that could precipitate a lot of things. And then the red bearded man's like, wow, Etty, that was actually a good use of the word precipitate. Listen to him, guys. And then everyone walking inside was throwing so much shade at me, and they're like, Etienne, really, the word precipitate? You're going to use the word like that? Come on, dude. And I just remember, it was so funny. But then I remember we got new couches, and I can't remember if it was junior or sophomore year. And we literally would lean in them like crazy, and we would break them. And I remember, I think it was last year, they got a new couch, and we were like, all right, boys, how fast do you think we can break this chair? And I actually don't think we ever even tried to break it. But we'd also see how many people we could fit on the couches at one time. And there's some wild shenanigans that comes about. But you also, in HL break, will just end up kind of discussing the text, which I think is funny, even though sometimes you may hate it. Trying to think. if there was any other massive shenanigans. I mean,
Here, I've got a couple of, if you can't think. So I guess staying in the same year, I guess some stories about our experience with DK Money. I think first week of school, maybe second week. So Etty here had a stroke, and like this second week, like we were reading poetry or something, and I think we were in the same class, and I think Etty made a point about like the language of the like how the rhyme pattern worked in the poem, and Mr. Kimball was like trying to like joke around and like have a good time. It's just like, Etty, you sound like you're having a stroke.
wait, no. So,
Oh, wait, all right.
okay, so here's what happened. Well, similar. So DK Money, we were reading. I think we were reading a short story or something, and a friend of ours who is he's not the best in class. He's a meathead. He loves working out. Love him to death though. He's a very sweet guy. He was kind of annoyed about being called on, so he started reading this text in a very like southern accent.
Oh, wait.
And he read the entire thing, and then DK Money afterwards was like, so Titus, are you having a stroke? And then another guy in our class looked at
Well, it's just like dead silence.
it went dead silent because, and I don't really care about those jokes. They don't affect me at all. But someone pipes up in our class like, DK Money, we can't make those jokes. Etty here actually had a stroke. He looks at me. His face is pale. He's like, oh, I'm about to lose my job. He's like, oh my gosh, Etty, I'm so sorry. Everyone was kind of cracking up because I don't really care. And then he comes up to me, are you okay, Etty? And he's like, I didn't mean to do anything. And I was like, yeah, it's fine.
Tears in his eyes and everything.
And it was so, and what's funny is I remember my teacher this year, this will be his second year, so he's relatively new. But I remember I explained that story to him. I can't remember, I think it was during HL break or something. And he was like, oh yeah, Mr. Still makes fun of him for that. We can cut it out.
Yeah, just remember.
Yeah,
I'll bleep it.
We have a lot of names we need to bleep. It's all right. But father still makes fun of him for it. And I run to father a lot, the climbing gym and things. He is, he actually is probably one of those teachers that I'd consider more, father like. And apparently he still makes fun of him for it to this day. And I'll even try to make it an effort to be like, hey, DK Money, remember that time? I'd really, like I said, I don't care, and I have no hate against him. But it's so funny because he gets so embarrassed about it. About something he should not be embarrassed over, but he is. And it's just, I love it so, so much.
Yeah, it really just was a mistake. I guess second story, and probably the more memorable between people that we know, was like when he gave out 4 or 5 detentions at once for just like the most immature joke ever. And then, so I think, well, excuse me, I think we were like a bit like distracted, a bit restless today or the day for whatever reason, and I guess we're all sophomores. I guess that's kind of what's to be expected. But we were just joking around, and I think one of the guys had to use the bathroom really, really bad, and he was just like, all right, and he was like desperate, so he asked Mr. Kimball, hey, can I use the bathroom? And remember, it was after HL break, and you're supposed to use that time, one, to like relax, but two, also to use the bathroom and drink water, so you don't have to do it during class. And DK Money is just like, nope. And he was really annoyed. And then I think another one of our, I think it's actually the same friend that me and T are referring to. He's really jacked, works out a ton. He's just like, yo, yo, person is Slamma, just go take a piss in the tree over there. And he got livid, and whoever left got a detention. So at the end of the day, it was like 4 or 5 people just got detentions, and he was not in a good mood. Also, I think another story that I think involves just only me and you and a teacher was, I think, during 10th grade, we were still allowed to have class outside, when it was nice. And, DK Money was just like, all right, guys, you guys can go on your break, and then you'll go outside. And so we go on our break. We sit on the couches, chairs, probably broke something. And so I'm a little bit slow. And so I was just like, oh shoot, I need to go to the bathroom as we're going outside. And Etty is like, Dean, where the are you going? And a teacher, I think I'm going to call her,
just call her Mrs. R.
Mrs. R, she was just like, alright, who cursed? And oh my gosh, Etty just gets so, and you just get so embarrassed, and you're just like, oh, that was me. And she's just like, this is a kid-friendly school, you are not allowed to say that, and you were so embarrassed. I don't know how she did not give you a detention, but you're just like, I apologize, I won't ever do it again. It was so funny.
Well, yeah, I remember Dean was leaving early for something. And
I think it was the bathroom.
I guess. I was like, yeah, where are you going? And
I'll
she
be
was
right back. You can talk about that.
And she said, well, oh, wait, who cussed? And I remember we were walking. I was like, Mr. I'm sorry. And she's like, Etienne, don't ever do that again. I was like, yeah, I'm sorry. I did, I realized my mistake. Another funny story to come out of Humanities that's just not, absolutely at all related. I can't remember what we were doing. Hey guys, sorry for the interruption. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty, but just going back to this story, I guess I can just retell it. So, a friend of ours who's really smart at HL, and he's so fun to be with in HL, but I think he just tripped or something and accidentally kicked a potted plant, and it cracked, and the dirt went everywhere. And the moment T-Bone walks in, he's just like, "Oh, sorry, Mr. Rome. I didn't know what happened. I accidentally broke the." And to this day, we still say that around Blake, and it's still hilarious. I don't know what makes it so funny, but it's just a whole funny thing. And I think he only ended up. I don't think he even paid for anything or got in trouble. It was like just a genuine accident. Our very buff friend, he also broke a framed picture in DK's money class.
That was not an accident.
They were like wrestling in class and it cracked, and I don't think anyone ever noticed until like a week later, and our jacked friend fed up to it. So, the funny thing with DK Money, he's a sweet guy. In European literature, we read an author by the name of Alexander Solzhenitsyn. He read a couple times throughout your Bugatti life, and in this book that we read is a short book called A Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich, who is, I think it's truly just a journal of a day in the life of this gulag prisoner that he was with. And
I'll be right back. You can just continue.
This story, since it recounts everything, stays very true to how prisoners would act. I think that adds to the beauty of it. But so there is a lot of cussing throughout this entire book. And it was always so funny because I remember DK Money prefaced it all by saying, okay, boys, so I'm going to be using all the swear words and, just be prepared for that. And to this day, and he's a very, all the teachers are very clean in their language. So it's so funny because I can't remember, all of the lines or anything, but I remember it was just.
I remember the curse word.
But I remember he was like, "Oh, you son of a." It was always so. it was always so funny because, they'd be insulting each other, cussing at each other. And, some teachers will either skip over it or, just kind of mutter under their breath even. He put some chutzpah into that. He did not shy away. There wasn't any, there wasn't even trying to cover it. It was, he had some soul into those, he been holding that bottled up for a while. He wasn't making a joke about that. It's always just such a funny thing. And it's always so funny to just hear teacher cuss, because that's so anormal. But,
that was a fun class. And I think also now that we're getting into senior year and we're also reading a bit more modern stuff, there are definitely going to be a lot more curse words. And I think especially with the short story we read actually this couple weeks ago, the person, the lady was cursing out somebody over the phone, saying like son of a bitch. Actually, and funny enough, this also said the words as well, and T-Bone also said the words as well, and he put some oomph into those. Junior year, we can start with that, yeah.
Just to also give my perspective, so I have a different teacher this year. We'll call him Soren, I guess. And he, I think he actually didn't end up saying bitch. He kind of was like, he also says like, okay guys, so there's some cuss words in here. I am not going to be saying that, all of them. I think he said a couple, but he stumbled. He was probably sitting there for like 5-10 seconds, just stumbling over his words. He never ended up saying but he said guy. And I can't remember what the line was or anything, but he was like, oh, you guy. And it was just so funny. We even giggled about it just because he couldn't think of anything else to replace the word with, or he didn't even say it.
He just said guy.
He just said guy. It's like, bastard. Come on.
That's pretty funny. I did not know that. I guess we've already kind of talked about junior year pretty thoroughly. We've talked about the big red man and how boring T-Bone is. You got any? I've got one more good story for senior year left, if you've got any left. All right, I'll just say that one. So this actually happened a month, I think, 3 to 4 weeks ago, approximately. But it's just a normal day. And so me and my class, I think we're both pretty bored. We're all pretty bored, and we're reading a short story about a professor getting owned by the teacher, getting owned by the student, getting backsassed, whatever. And so it's slightly boring, and so we all people just go to the bathroom just to kill time. And then I believe Bell, I'll call him, goes to bathroom, comes back with just a weird grin on his face. And so the next kid, BB, goes into the bathroom, as he knows which story I'm talking about. He unfortunately was not here for this, but BB goes in, and BB's one of those guys that, like we've talked about, has his phone on him, he's vapes, whatever. And he comes back laughing. And so throughout the next hour, each one of us goes to the bathroom. And so then it's my turn. And so I'm a bit confused. And so I go and in the bathroom, in the toilet, there's just a whole thing of pubic hairs over the toilet, over the ground. And some kid was so bored that he just cuts off his pubic hairs, has little baby scissors, and writes a little message on the wall behind the toilet saying, "Cut yours off next." I mean, I get HL can be boring sometimes. I've me and multiple people, countless other people, have slept through 20 minutes. But this guy was so bored enough that he goes to the bathroom and cuts off his pubic hairs. So nasty. And there's a whole picture of this. And, it's just like some kid had a whole rainforest growing down there, too. There was so much. It was vile.
So, the funny thing about that whole ordeal is I remember I just heard about it after the whole event. And we have this little group that we sit with at lunch. And, Dean almost told the girls that we sit with typically, and I just looked over and I was like, no, they don't need to know about this. So I actually don't know if they even heard about it. I'm sure they did because news goes around like wildfire. If there's only 50 people in your class and all, everyone hears about everything, which is always fun, but whatever. So to add on, I guess I got one more story that, if we think of anything else, we can keep talking. But I remember it was junior year and we had a sub. She was a really interesting person, and she actually brought some more real life examples into it. But throughout the class, because it was just a reading day, and we were discussing the cave that Plato talks about, and the forms and how that's kind of an analogy and everything. But throughout the class, she just asked us random trivia, and I remember Star Trek was brought up, but she was also asking about artists from like the 90s, who won Grammys, etc. I literally know nothing about any of that, but I had my phone on me. And nobody was answering it, so I just pulled out my phone and I just, typed the answers in. And the guy who broke the pot, I typically sat next to him. He looks over and is like, dude, what are you doing? Like, I just raised my hand, acting like I knew those answers, which I didn't know them for anything. Some of the artists I never even heard of. And I remember, and I got a sticker for her or something. She was like, at the end of the class, because I got I think she asked 3 or 4. No, I was the only person that ever answered them. She's like, yeah, if you ever have a trivia night, guys, you talk to this guy. He's going to help you out a lot. And the smart guy looks over at me. It was like, dude, you just looked up the answers. I'm like, I don't know, man. I was the one who won at the end of the day. And they got so mad. It was so funny, though. It was all good fun. But that was it was so funny. For the random trivia, and I got it all right, just because I had my phone on me.
I guess we could also, in our past episode, we talked about Fine Arts Night, and that happened. We can discuss that. I've got a little story to tell about that whole ordeal, but it actually went well, surprisingly enough. The song we were talking about, Die Valkyrie, according to recordings, we sounded good, so it passed the test, apparently. But the songs we played were also, the easier songs that we played were nice and sounded good. And that was that. You want to say it, or I have the story?
Oh, yeah, go.
Alright, cool. So we all go out to get ice cream afterwards, and it was really fun. And so, typical teenagers, most of our friends had actually already headed home, including Etty. But me and a couple other people that I'm not going to name, we're just all chilling in my car. We're listening to music. We're laughing, telling jokes, and it's pretty funny. And so I had actually parked since I'd missed my turn. I parked in a different parking lot. So I drove like 4 or 5 people, and then they left except for 2 or 3. And we were all just chilling, having a good time. But my dumbass forgot to turn off the car so that we could have heaters. And that completely killed my battery. And so realizing that, like, keep in mind, this is 9:30. Like, my parents they're done for the day. They want to chill and go to bed. And so I realize, and there's one person, I don't think, I don't know, I'll just call her A. And so she's yeah, and we're just chilling together, and she was like, Dean, your battery's out. And I'm just thinking I'm such an idiot. And so I'm forced to just having to call my dad at 9:30 because I left the car on too long. And it took us like a whole 20 minutes, and it was cold that night. It is below freezing, and I'm just like, my bad. And so my car has not had any issues ever since then. So I'm chilling. But for those of you listening, don't forget to turn your car off. That kills your battery, and that can mess with your car a bunch.
And just to add on, I wasn't there for that, unfortunately, because I had to go up to Denver. I had some things to do. But also to add on to, just us being teenagers, it was below freezing. There was ice everywhere. We were, slipping around. We were outside eating ice cream, just to throw that out there.
Also had French fries.
Oh, I guess those were nice. Those were very warm and very nice to have. I love those things. I think we can close off the episode for today.
All right, thank you so much for watching. We know that you could be doing literally anything else, but you're listening to us, and we greatly appreciate that. Any final words?
Well, I believe we'll be doing another episode on New Year's Eve at approaching midnight. So we'll talk to you then. Have a good week, people.